What's going on, YouTube? This is The Last Musketeer, and once again, we're picking up right where we left off, and at this point I'm unlocking another event, because, really I was trying to decide which one I wanted to use, and I had an extra token, so I figured I might as well unlock the last one, and I think the Intermezzi section? I could be wrong, it could be the other one, but I wanted to get that unlocked so I'd have all four of those ready to go and try it out, because I do like to take my time reading through and going through all of the side event missions, the recurring ones, because these are actually so well done. I always enjoy the maps, the different map styles, the different artwork, the different enemies that you run into can also be very useful for seeing stuff that you would see later on, maybe in the regular campaign or something like that. It's a good way to get accustomed to it beforehand. Also, this is one of the CC maps that I actually had a hard time on. Not this map in particular, but the enemies from it are the same kind. So, you know, if I'd done this beforehand, I would have understood what I was dealing with a little better, though I didn't get the option to play this beforehand. But now that we have it, I can plan a little better and kind of understand the turret action more. I do know that I can bait with dropping a hero in a certain location and trying to get that turret to move to that spot, maybe out of the way. But it all boils down to figuring out ways to stop them from doing that. So I have to see, I'm going to test and see if I can get them with a silence or something, but it'd probably have to be out of range. That's the main thing that I have to worry about. So potentially maybe dropping J in the location where they can be stopped there might work. Still, it's something I'll have to work towards. So you'll see in the future, maybe I'll work with some shifters and see if I can do something with that as well. Because I feel like if you can cancel something out, maybe there's opportunities there. But we get this one done. This is where I got to in the event missions. I could have gone further, though I wanted to do some of the other things that I had planned. So I just used this one for a little bit of extra OP and then try to do some more pulls later on. So one thing that I may not have mentioned in the free-to-play Is It Worth It series is that I love the fact that you can go back and play these events that have passed, done their rotations, done their runs before, and are now added to where you can unlock them and play them at your own leisure. I do love that. Obviously, you're not going to get as many resources and stuff as you did beforehand, but you can do the stages, you can try them out, you can see the different mechanics that they have in there, because these do also tie in to stuff like CC. So it's important if you get a strong understanding of it beforehand, and then you go into a CC and you can actually understand the mechanics. Arknights does a lot of things right, and that is one of them for sure, so big ups to the devs. But enough about that. We're going into Chapter 6 finally. So this one was scary going in, because I knew how hard the whole Chapter 5 was for me, so I was a little nervous going into this, thinking about how hard it was going to be to actually clear. Now I will say, so far it hasn't been as bad as I thought it would be. You know, maybe it's the fact that I'm getting better at the game, or maybe it's the fact that the early stages, they try to be a little easier on you, which is generally the case, but at least in this sense I know I can get through these stages at a decent rate, and you know, given more time in the next thing and not farming as much resources, I have an opportunity to maybe get to Chapter 7 by the end of this, which means also I gotta get on to talking about the story as soon as possible. That's my main goal. And as you see here, one of the new guys that I saw, one of the new enemies, is actually those big guard guys with the rock formations coming off of them. I don't know, I assume they're just infected. That's the main aspect of it, but you know, there's so much to the story, so much to the lore, that I have to really do a deep dive before I can finally understand completely everything that's going on, and try to understand a little deeper into the meaning of a lot of those things. But we get a 5-star from the Mudrock banner, the guaranteed 5-star in the first 10 pulls, and it's one that I'm probably not going to use. April seems like a decent operator, maybe for like the same role as Cruz or Blue Poison, but the actual second skill is something that I probably wouldn't use that much. Camouflage can be useful, but it seems like a weaker version of Firewatch in a way. I know it's a different branch, her being Marksman, but I just don't know that I'll get much use out of her, so she'll probably wait for quite a while. But moving on to the next Chapter 6 stage, this one was a bit of a doozy. I lost it probably 2 or 3 times before I finally figured out the exact way I needed to set myself up to clear these. And I've got Thorns doing a lot of damage on the first 3 lanes, the top 3 lanes, Obviously nothing walks down the middle, but it's the top and the bottom that he's dealing with. J I'm using just to keep someone else from going down, because there do tend to be a lot of casters walking through that location. Beagle is another one that's going to have to tank for a moment for these guys. And I will say I do need at some point to work someone up like Shalem, where I can get some of the arch resistance and make it a little easier for them to survive, because I'm noticing in some of the stages there are a ton of casters, and if you don't have the right setup, it's very hard to deal with them. One of them being H5 stage 2, because that one a ton of casters walk through, and if you're not pulling them into the holes of the map, you're going to have a hard time. Now, one thing I need to note is those guys on the top and bottom right now that are glowing with the red pixels going up. Those guys are a pain. They're basically, I don't know if they're infected with the same thing that you see in those earlier stages, like Chapter 4, where they walk through that tile and they gain the attack up, the attack speed, that kind of thing. But they take damage over time, so it's kind of like the same sense of that. Like, they get it without walking through the tile. So they do take damage over time. If you can bait them, you can get them low. But in this stage, this was an absolute nightmare. I lost this one many a time. I used Mudrock to initially clear it, and I have to say that this is a level 90 Mudrock, by the way. This is a maxed Mudrock that nearly goes down 3 different times. These guys are no joke, and dealing with them is going to be very hard. I tried to set up a slow at one point using Orchid, but honestly, it's kind of hard. Anything that maybe can bind them in place or at least stall them for a little bit may be the best option, so they take a lot of damage, so by the time they get to your defender, they don't do a whole lot. Somebody will have to give me their tips, their suggestions, at least for maybe how to deal with them, because they're a bit hard to figure out. As you can see, Mudrock is very low there, so I have Galvio Altar sitting at the bottom using the pull ability so they can no longer get to Mudrock, which I say it many times, but I will go ahead and say it again. Gabriel the Invincible is absolutely nuts and is basically a mainstay in my squad. There's basically, I don't think there's any map that I've run into really where she hasn't been useful. I mean, other than ones that you can't really deploy her, or if you need a tank instead. You know, I don't have her to E2 yet, so she can't fill that role just yet, but when I get her to that point, using her, swapping her skills around, I'll have so many different options. I think she's one of those units that you can absolutely use her in so many different situations with different skills, and not just one skill in particular, and those are the best operators because you're going to get the most value out of them. But this one, it was a little rough because they had the same guys that had that extra attack speed and extra attack kind of style coming from the top lane, and the best way to deal with it is trying to bait them out as long as possible. Probably if I'd put Gravel in there, maybe Yato as well, just to keep them occupied up there, then you probably would have been better off, because once 2 of them stacked, my healers together, Perfumer and Shiny, could not tank or heal each other enough to actually survive it, and I didn't have enough deployment to keep them alive. So basically, you know, anything you can do to occupy their time and make them take all that HP damage over time is the best option there. This is another one that was crazy because there are no places to put defenders top. So the only way to survive this and not leak anything is literally putting someone like Gummy or any type of other baiter in this map, to where they just sit there and continuously attack them until they run out of HP themselves. Now, if you have somebody that can do a lot of damage and has at least some decent survivability, as I probably could have put, you know, Click facing to the left or to the right, and then place my defenders after so that they're guaranteed to attack the defenders, probably the best option. And, you know, that's something I'll experiment with later on because I haven't beat this one quite yet. As you can see, once they start coming from both sides, they are a nightmare. And I just get absolutely destroyed at that point. So that's where we're at. Now this one, maybe a little more familiar to you. I'm running the exact same strat than I did the previous time, and this was actually from the stream. So, you know, if you missed it, you'll get to see it here without having to watch the VOD. I know the VODs can be a little long and a little confusing at times, so I figure the best option is to just add them in here sometimes, or maybe I'll go through and edit some of the VODs at times and actually put them in here, skipping most of the downtime. You'll just have to let me know what people want in that particular sense. But The thing about this one is, since the risk change, it mainly became a problem with the eggs. Now, one way I found around that is actually putting Posey again, which was the original strap, putting her in there again to make sure that the typewriter hits the same egg at the same time that she does. So once you activate her ability, she gets extra range. The typewriter also does. So if you place it where you'll see later as I'm finding the bosses and stuff, it tends to attack the one that's closest to Posey. So depending on the time that you put them out, if you do it in the right situation, you're going to get the eggs attacked by both the typewriter and Posey at the same time, which means they're not going to take the extra damage from the elemental burst that was added with the risk. So now Posey's able to stay alive, where initially this shouldn't be the way that you can complete this. People said it was a bug, but you know, I guess at times I may need to exploit something like that. What can I say? There is no shame in my game. No, I normally wouldn't go for exploit, but honestly, in this one, it saved me a lot of time. It made things a little easier on stream. There are other ways to complete it. There are probably a lot better ways of doing this one, and there was a lot of suggestions on stream. I'm not great at executing them, even if I know the plan. So I normally just end up finding something that works and just going with it. At that point, you know, there's not much else I can do. But either way, we're finishing it off. Once again, this one starts to walk forward, so I was worried for a second, but since they both hit at the same time, once again, I don't take the extra damage. So now I can just bait the boss skill with Beagle, and she survives it, which is crazy. I didn't think she would actually have a chance of surviving that. She's the only one in my runs that had. And honestly, since I had to run it a few times on stream just to get the timing and stuff down, my heart was beating very fast during this. I was really afraid I was going to mess something up, especially at the end. I have one left to leak, or one that I can't leak, and so if it did get by, or I did accidentally mess up the timing on something, that would mean I had to run it completely over again. So we're doing it in 1 times instead of 2 for this, even though I know what I'm doing at this point. You know, safety first, saving your sanity, not in-game, because CC is not going to take your sanity, but your IRL sanity is more important overall for that. But also we hit the level 48, so I'm that much closer to level 50, though I'm going to have to save up a lot of OP if I want to get those resource packs, which will be nice in the future. Once again, I think those are a really great option. I don't know if it's the best thing to do, but I do go for that. You'll see me doing a lot of circling with the mouse and trying to figure out where to drop stuff, because I do run these in practice first. But I was also talking about, I try to explain in much detail as I possibly can on stream what I'm thinking. That way it makes it a little easier. And also if people have suggestions to help me with certain things, then they can. But we end up just barely squeaking by dropping Courier after that. I had to make sure that Cruz got enough damage in time, and she did. Once again, Cruz has been a great level up. I also leveled up Spot because I used him in the Lungman Downtown, and I didn't show that because I didn't get to full completion while on stream. I did mess up a few times, unfortunately. So it's still a work in progress, but by the end of this I'm going to do some off stream, and then I'll do a video, you know, talking about it and what I discovered, what I figured out as far as full completing it. It's going to be a great time. I'm very, very excited, looking forward to that. So this one was actually scary. We ended up using Posey because she has so much damage and she can take out all the spiders extremely quickly. One thing I am scared about a lot of times is, since Lapland is not E2, dropping her, she gets a 1-second silence. So if something else is attacking a different one at the same time, in some cases I think Posey might do it, or Thorns potentially, there's a chance that they blow up, like right there, before she attacks, and it goes down and blows up. Now, if it takes out some of my blockers, we're in for a rough time. That was another one. Lapland just barely survives. I was worried about that one. She gets that one out of the way. She gets this one out of the way. And at this point, I'm going to have Typewriter up pretty soon, so I can basically finish everything else off. With that, I have another blocker to deploy. I also have Gravel in case I need to bait some of the spiders, but I knew when I saw Platinum running through that point that Platinum had enough damage to take them out before anyone else got downed. Now, Lapland did go down, obviously, but once again, the Typewriter aspect just basically took everything out. Nothing to worry about there. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it before the last one was going on, but these are actually the challenge stages. I'm not going back and clearing the regular. These are all challenge modes, because I'm trying to get extra OP for a couple more pulls on stream. And this one may be familiar for some of you that watched the series beforehand. This one gave me a bit of trouble on first clearing normal. The challenge mode, not so much. I think actually it ran one practice before this and completed on the first try. Now I am borrowing someone's Mastima for the slow because it's extremely good for stopping the heavy hitters later on and trying to just keep everybody alive long enough, because the more damage you take on this, the harder it's going to be. Obviously, it goes with any map in general, but this one, with the extra damage you're getting from the tiles that you have to deploy on, it makes it quite a lot harder to get these done. So basically, anytime I have an opportunity to save them from some damage, it's going to put me ahead in the long run. Now, I will say that with these, it's all about timing, because when the casters do come out a little bit later, I have to make sure that I have somebody there to actually take the bind. So I'll have Gravel or Jay deployed in those sections, and I wasn't quite sure with the timing. I was thinking it was around 28 when they first pop out, so I was trying to wait a little bit with Gravel just to make sure I got it done. So I ended up dropping her in time, and I could have had time for Jay as well. Potentially, I'd have to be extremely quick with the swap because I didn't have enough deployment limits left. So basically what I'd have to do is drop Gravel, get her to bait, and then immediately remove her and drop Jay in the other lane, because that's the only way you're going to get it in time to actually keep the Sarkaz caster off of your unit. Now, one thing that was a bit of a bother, two of the spiders, the slugs, actually ended up blowing up on that bottom lane. Lapland took out one. The AoE from Mastima, I think, it caused too much of a problem there for her to keep them all off. But either way, luckily, only Lapland went down. If Thorn had went down too, probably a chance that I lose that map, because yeah, I do have some blockers, but I don't know if it's enough time to keep it up. Now this one is actually fun. I didn't have a hard time figuring this one out. I thought I would, but obviously Posey is just a boss destroying machine, and she got it all done pretty easily. I mean, she solos the boss. All I have to do is keep someone there to keep the boss in place and make sure that it's not targeting Posey the whole time. So you'll see I drop the typewriter here, then immediately deploy Jay after, activate the ability. First phase is down, she goes back up, gets destroyed again. I wasn't sure if I needed a place. I decided not to. I decided to save Gravel, and luckily I did. Though I don't know if it necessarily make too much of a difference if I drop her there, because she's only cost 4. It's very, very cheap. But the typewriter disappeared, and the skill ended like around the same time that the boss went down. So it was actually perfect timing. And from here, I'm just using some lane blockers, making sure that they're staying alive. Ollie's spot is DPSing bottom lane. It's very slow, but he's getting a little bit of work in. I drop the typewriter again to destroy this next wave so they don't stack up too much and I don't take too much damage on Thorns. And once those are gone, now all I have to worry about is the last wave. Now Thorns is going to take care of these, Cantabile for a little extra damage in that lane to make sure that I guarantee that none can pass at that point, though I do have some more blockers I can use. So from here we just drop another typewriter and then finish him off, and that is this one done. It really wasn't as hard as I thought it'd be. It was scary to say the least, because that boss was insane the first time I fought her. But the challenge run, not too bad. Now I didn't want to make the video too long, but I included this one because people were saying this used to be the hardest challenge run back in the day. I don't know what it is now, but it scared me when they said that, so I was like, you know what, maybe we can get lucky and get this done. They did tell me to just Surtur it, which did work, so luckily it was on stream and they made it a lot easier on me, giving me that option, because honestly it's hard to pick a certain support hero, especially when you don't have an idea of what a lot of them do. Now Thorns holding this lane basically by himself with all that damage has been basically the best option that I've had in a lot of these runs, and as I said before, I didn't necessarily want to use him too much because I don't want him to be like a crutch that I lean on, but honestly, if I have them on my roster, I might as well try to utilize them as much as I can. I missed the timing of the pullout of Cantabile so that she didn't go down and I get that extra DP back, but it doesn't necessarily matter. At this point, I dropped Surtur, just finished the Elite Caster at the bottom part, tank the ones that are coming through the door for a little bit just to buy some more time, and then I stall the one at the top until he gets close enough for me to actually do something with. And I will say once again, Cantabile just doing work. But from here on out, it's pretty simple, just making sure that nothing leaks and just holding my blockers in long enough and making sure everything goes right. Now, Spot almost goes down up here. I noticed right in time, right before the last cast, to activate the ability and keep him up. So that basically secured me the run, and it was good. But anyway, guys, I'm not going to show the heroes because I haven't done too many upgrades to them. I need resources. So basically, I'm going to end the video here. But hopefully we make a lot of upgrades next week, and I'll see you there. Peace.